Josette side by side. From a new adventure they never hide. They follow the signs, they follow the clues. In the city of lights, what songs disclose?
Klara and Josette, clever and fine, with a sparkle in their eyes and a sign to find. Side by side, no riddle too tough. In Paris, what is real, what is a bluff?
Sie hören das Flüstern der Steine bei Nacht. Sie folgen dem Klang, der im Schatten erwacht. Mit Mut in der Pfote, mit Blick und Verstand. Sie kennen fast jede Tunnelwand. Whispers and echoes behind the wall. A bell, a mask, a secret call. Together they stand, brave and small. Two mice, one city, and mysteries for all. Josette, clever and fine, with a sparkle in their eyes and a sign to find. Side by side, no riddle too tough. In Paris, what is real, what is a bluff?
Sie hören das Flüstern der Steine bei Nacht.
Sie folgen dem Klang, der im Schatten erwacht. Mit Mut in der Pfote, mit Blick und Verstand. Sie kennen fast jede Tunnelwand. Whispers and echoes behind the wall. A bell, a mask, a secret call. Together they stand, brave and small. Two mice, one city, and mysteries for all. Together they stand, brave and small. Two mice, one city, and mysteries for all.
Mademoiselle Cheesepaw, Book 2, Clara's Years in Paris. Chapter 1, Between Hills and Huts. Once upon a time, there was a little mouse with a name as simple as a slice of buttered bread, but with a heart as big as a mountain ridge. Her name was Klara, just Klara. No Mademoiselle yet, no Cheesepaw, simply Klara, daughter of Master Baker Baldwin and cheese seller Matilda, from a tiny village somewhere in the Swiss Alps. Her home lay high above, where the goats bleat, the winds whistle, and the scent of freshly baked cheese bread floats through the windows. The humans lovingly called it Hinterhügelingen, but the mice had their own name for it, Little Emmental. Klara loved her village. She knew every crumb between the cracks in the rocks, every whistle of the marmots, and of course the names of all the villagers, from shy old clockmaker Maurice to stern music teacher Miss Fortissima, who could coax the sweetest notes out of even the most tone-deaf mice, like a piccolo flute in the wind. Life in Little Emmental was simple, but never dull. In the early mornings, Klara helped her mother sort cheese samples, Gruyère to the left, Appenzeller to the right, and the especially strong-smelling Vacherin Mont d'Or out on the balcony. "So it can breathe," Matilda always said. Klara loved to sniff. To her, life smelled of hay, fireplace smoke, and a hint of blue cheese. Even as a mouseling, she liked to sneak through the cheesemaker's storage rooms, watching fresh cheese being carefully turned and dreaming of the big wide world, even though she could barely see past the cheese wheel at the edge of the village. "Klara, you're a dreamer," her mother often said, adjusting the cloth scarf Klara had adored from an early age. "I'm just curious," Klara would reply. curious about more than just holes in cheese, about music, about adventure, about the great big outside. In the afternoons, she roamed the meadows, picked berries, made lists of her favorite cheese crumbs, or listened in on the conversations of mountain cows, who she thought were secretly very clever creatures. Her best friend during this time was a small, scruffy mouse named Josette, who came from a traveling circus family and lived in the hayloft of her Aunt Marie. Josette was different, louder, bolder, braver. She wore a red knitted hat, even in summer, and collected sparkly things dropped by tourists, an earring, a coin, a candy bead bracelet. "For later," she said, "for when we go out into the world." Josette had always dreamed of Paris, of glittering chandeliers, opera ball mice, and fragrant eclairs bigger than her paws, and every time Klara asked, "Why Paris of all places?" Josette would grin and say, "Because anything is possible there, even for mice like us." Klara would laugh. Sometimes, when the moon hung especially bright over the mountains, she could almost see it, their shared dream, far down in the valley. It smelled like cheese with a hint of caramel, whispered like chansons on the wind, and felt like longing. Back then, Klara didn't know that one day she really would travel there, not just in her thoughts, but with a piece of brie and a heart full of curiosity packed in her bag. Because Klara and Josette, too, wanted more. More than alpine air and cheese fondue. They wanted music. They wanted opera. They wanted crumbs from the world's table. And all of that, she hoped, was waiting somewhere in Paris. Josette was more than just a playmate to Klara. She was a whirlwind, a giggle in the storm, a tiny compass with a wild heart. When Klara was still thinking, planning, or hesitating, Josette had already set off, straight into the adventure. Together, they explored the village's old cheese cellars, built dens out of wool cloths and forgotten book pages, and secretly listened in on the annual Great Marmot Cheese Symposium, a top-secret meeting held beneath a juniper bush, mostly to debate whether cheese rinds make suitable bedding. On particularly windy days, they tied scraps of fabric around their shoulders and played wind flyers on the hills. Josette would shout, "If we were just a little braver, we'd take off." And Klara would reply, "I'm already brave, but my feet are sensible." Then Josette would grab her paw, and the two of them would tumble down the hillside, giggling all the way. They laughed a lot, and sometimes they didn't laugh at all. Just sat side by the stream, paws in the water, gazing silently at the sky where the clouds told stories. If you only looked closely enough, Josette was curious about the world. Klara was curious about Josette's stories. Sometimes Josette told tales from her circus days, of traveling in candy wrapper boxes, of tightrope walks on dental floss, and of a great aunt who could balance on a pepper mill. Klara clung to every word like to a thread. Curious, enchanted, amazed. To Klara, Josette was the first proof that dreams have legs, and sometimes tiny, nimble paws. "You know," Josette once said as they sat together on an empty raclette wheel watching the sunset, "I think friendship is like a good cheese. It needs time, warmth, and a little bit of maturity. Some friendships are as precious as the last crumb of your favorite cheese." Klara nodded. In that moment, she knew. There was no one in the world she'd rather venture into the unknown with than Josette. A few weeks later, winter came, with frost on the windowsills, ice flowers in the cheese cellar, and a hush that softened even the clinking of milk cans. In Little Emmental, that meant winter rest for the meadows, cheese supplies for the cellars, and ice skating on the frozen village pond. Josette loved the ice. No surprise. With circus blood in her veins, she could dance on skates like others danced on stage. She spun pirouettes, leapt, slid backwards in curves, and laughed so loud that even the marmots peeked out from under their blankets. Klara skated more shakily, but with determination. "I want to do that too," she called, pushed off, and attempted a spin, then another. A figure 8. Backwards, she was having fun, felt free, and wasn't watching where she was going. A crack. Very soft. Then a split. "Klara," Josette shouted, but it was too late. The ice gave way. Klara vanished with a cry beneath the surface. Cold water, darkness, no grip, only the pounding of her heart. You have been listening to an excerpt from Mademoiselle Cheesepaw, Volume 2, Clara's Years in Paris by Pamela Haberlander. You can find the complete book at www.goodbearcompany.com.